Most people overlook nickels, but some of these 5-cent pieces hold incredible value. Stick around, and let's uncover the rarest nickels that could turn your loose change into treasure. You never know what might be hiding in your pocket or coin jar. By the end of this video, you might just see those everyday coins in a whole new light. There's something fascinating about the coins we see every day. Most people barely notice them, just spare change, small amounts that add up. But what if one of those coins turned out to be worth thousands? What if something that's been sitting in a jar, tucked into a drawer, or handed over at a store has quietly grown in value, waiting to be noticed? Today, we're looking at a coin that most people have seen, spent, or saved without giving it a second thought. It's the 1979 Jefferson nickel, the first and top coin on our list today. And while it might seem like just another old 5-cent piece, there's more to this coin than meets the eye. The year is 1979. The United States is going through change, economically and politically, and like any other time, coins are being produced in massive numbers. The Jefferson nickel, introduced in 1938, is still going strong. That year, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins. So at first glance, it seems like nothing special. But not all coins are created equal, and some become much more valuable over time. The 1979 Jefferson nickel carries the familiar design. On the front is a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson. His expression is calm, thoughtful, a design that has stood the test of time. Just beside his chin sits the date, 1979, and a small D mint mark that tells us this coin was made in Denver. On the reverse side, we see Monticello, Jefferson's iconic home in Virginia. It's centered on the coin, with the name just below, framed by E pluribus unum at the top and United States of America, and 5 cents at the bottom. It's a design most of us recognize instantly, but it's not the design alone that matters. What truly separates valuable coins from the rest is condition. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins that entered circulation, passed from hand to hand, picked up tiny scratches, lost their shine, those are still interesting, but not rare. But a coin that was never used, never carried around, and stored in untouched, flawless condition for decades? That's something else entirely. Collectors look for sharp detail. A coin with clean surfaces, no wear, and strong original luster stands out. Even more important for Jefferson nickels is something called the steps. If you look closely at the front of Monticello, there are a set of horizontal steps leading up to the building. Most nickels from everyday use show these steps as blurred or worn away. But when those steps are clearly defined, all of them, it tells you that the coin was struck precisely and never saw use. That level of detail doesn't just happen by chance. It's rare, especially for a coin from a high mintage year like 1979. Now picture this, a coin resting untouched in a collection for decades, the detail still as crisp as the day it left the mint. Not a single nick or scratch, no sign of circulation, and a shine that reflects the light like it's brand new. That's the kind of coin that catches a collector's eye instantly. And it's the kind of coin that turns a quiet, forgotten nickel into something highly desirable. Some of these coins ended up in collector rolls. Others were pulled straight from mint sets and preserved with care. But out of the hundreds of millions struck, only a tiny fraction remained in perfect shape. And those are the coins that rise in value, slowly, silently, until one day, they're worth far more than anyone expected. A lot of people think value only comes from age. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's not about how old the coin is, but how well it survived. In fact, coins from the 1970s are just beginning to gain more attention as collectors start seeking out top-quality examples from more recent decades. That growing interest is pushing values upward, especially for coins like this one. Imagine finding one of these nickels in your old coin jar, not realizing what you had. No one would guess, just by looking, that it could be worth thousands. That's why knowledge matters, and why stories like this are worth sharing. And it makes you wonder, how many other overlooked coins are still out there, waiting to be discovered? The truth is, sometimes the most valuable items are hidden in plain sight. All it takes is a closer look and a bit of curiosity. So here's the part you've been waiting for. One example of the 1979 Jefferson nickel, in an exceptional state of preservation, with brilliant condition and full design clarity, reached a value that most people would never associate with a 5-cent coin. That single nickel was valued at $72,000. Yes, $72,000. For a coin most people wouldn't look twice at. That's why we chose this coin as the number one on our list today. Not because it's old or made of precious metals, but because it proves that even the most familiar, everyday coin can become something incredible, if the right conditions are met. It's a powerful reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's right in your pocket, waiting to be discovered. And that's the story of the 1979 Jefferson nickel. Keep an eye out, because coins like this aren't always where you expect them. Let's move on to the next coin. Coins have a way of surprising us. Not just the old, rare ones tucked away in antique collections or family safes, but even the ones minted in more recent decades. The ones you think you've seen 100 times. Sometimes, it's not age that gives a coin its value. It's a detail. A flaw. A quiet mistake that wasn't meant to happen. And in the world of modern coin errors, the 1988 Jefferson nickel is one of the most fascinating examples. At first glance, this coin looks just like every other nickel you've seen. A familiar face. A familiar building. Nothing flashy. But hidden within some of these coins is an error so specific and so easily overlooked that only a trained eye could spot it. Yet that single error transforms this everyday nickel into one of the most valuable pieces from its time. Let's start with the basics. The Jefferson nickel has been in production since 1938. By 1988, it had already been around for half a century, a reliable part of American pocket change. That year, the Philadelphia Mint struck millions of nickels, each stamped with the P Mint mark just beside the date. The design was consistent, Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, and his Monticello estate on the reverse. Simple. Standard. But in a small number of those 1988 nickels, something wasn't quite right. Here's where it gets interesting. In these rare coins, the reverse, the back side, was mistakenly created using a design die from the previous year. This means the 1988 obverse was paired with a reverse die that belonged to 1987. And while the design changes between 1987 and 1988 were incredibly subtle, they were real. Things like the spacing of the letters, the sharpness of the steps on Monticello, and the positioning of key features distinguished the two versions. So what we have here is a type of transitional error, when a die from one year is mistakenly used in the following year's production. This kind of mint error isn't just rare, it's hard to notice. In fact, most people who handled this coin in 1988, or even in the years that followed, never saw anything unusual. It looked like any other nickel, which is exactly why it's so valuable today. Mistakes like this aren't planned. They aren't part of special releases or collector editions. They happen because of a momentary slip in the minting process. A leftover die wasn't removed. A new one wasn't installed in time. And just like that, a few coins were struck with the wrong reverse design. Then they were released into circulation like everything else. That's where the story takes a turn. Because once those coins are out in the world, there's no easy way to track them. They could have been handed to someone as change, tossed into a coin jar, or stored away in a roll. And because the error is so subtle, many of these coins likely stayed hidden in plain sight, mistaken for ordinary nickels. But collectors who know what to look for began to spot the difference. It took time, but eventually this error was recognized and documented. Since then, it's been one of the most sought-after Jefferson nickel mistakes of the modern era. Not because of flash or age, but because of how specific and accidental the error was, and how few examples have been found in pristine condition. Now, let's talk about why this particular error stands out in the collector world. The value of a coin like this isn't just based on the mistake. That's only part of the equation. The real key is condition. A heavily worn error coin might still be interesting, but it won't command a high price. But if that same error coin was never used, never scratched, and kept in nearly flawless condition for decades, that's when the value jumps. Imagine this, a coin from 1988, untouched by circulation, stored carefully since the day it was minted. The fields are smooth. The steps on Monticello are sharp. Every letter, every line, every detail still crisp. That's what collectors are after, not just the rarity of the error, but the preservation of the coin itself. And the numbers back it up. Only a small handful of these 1988 P. Jefferson nickel error coins have surfaced in such high quality. Most were lost in the sea of ordinary change, or worn down before the error was even discovered. That makes the few remaining in top condition incredibly valuable, and incredibly hard to find. It's also worth noting that errors like this offer something else, a glimpse into the minting process. They're reminders that even in a tightly controlled, precision-driven environment, things don't always go as planned. And when they don't, the result can be something unique, something that stands apart from millions of others. So what kind of value are we talking about here, when all the right factors come together? A documented reverse of 1987 error, sharp detail, brilliant luster, and careful preservation, this small, everyday coin turns into a true standout. One known example of the 1988 P. Jefferson nickel error, confirmed with the incorrect reverse die and found in exceptional condition, was valued at $60,000. It's not made of silver. It's not over 100 years old. But because of a rare mistake and near-perfect preservation, it's become one of the most valuable modern nickels ever discovered. And that's what makes this coin so compelling. It shows how even a modern coin, something as common as a nickel, can quietly become a collector's dream. You don't need gold or age to have value. Sometimes, all it takes is a little error, and a lot of luck. Up next is a coin that might surprise you, not because of its age, but because of just how recent it is. When people think of valuable coins, their minds often jump to pieces from the early 1900s, or coins struck in silver or gold. But sometimes, the most unassuming coins, even from the late 20th century, end up being worth far more than you'd expect. And the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel is a perfect example of that. This coin was minted in Philadelphia, which we know thanks to the small P. Mint mark on the front, just next to the date. The Philadelphia Mint is one of the busiest facilities in the U.S. mint system, and in 1994, it produced a staggering number of Jefferson nickels, over 700 million of them, to be exact. With numbers like that, you'd think there's no way any single coin from that run could stand out. But every now and then, something exceptional slips through. To the average person, a 1994 nickel doesn't look like anything special. You could find one today in your pocket change or a coin jar. Most of them have been circulated for years, showing all the signs of heavy use, scratches, fading, dullness, and worn-out details. And because there are so many of them still around, it's easy to assume they're all basically the same. But not all 1994 nickels are equal. A small number, a very small number, came out of the mint looking almost flawless. No wear, no damage, and most importantly, struck with precision and care. These aren't just well-preserved coins. They're top-tier examples, the kind that collectors actively search for. So what makes one 1994 P nickel more valuable than another? It comes down to condition and strike quality, especially the fine details. One of the most important features on any Jefferson nickel is the reverse, the side showing Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's historic home in Virginia. At the base of the building are a series of steps. On most nickels, especially circulated ones, these steps appear soft or partially worn away. But on the best examples, the steps are sharp, clearly separated, and fully struck from top to bottom. Collectors call this full steps, and it's one of the most desirable traits for Jefferson nickels. A 1994 P nickel with full steps is already uncommon. But finding one in near-perfect condition, with no marks, clean surfaces, and strong luster, that's incredibly rare. The vast majority of coins from this mintage don't even come close. And it's that combination of scarcity and flawless preservation that gives this coin its surprising value. Now, a coin like this doesn't usually turn up in a coin jar or loose pocket change. The few that do survive in this state are often saved straight from fresh mint rolls or pulled from government-issued mint sets before they ever had a chance to circulate. Someone likely spotted its sharp strike early on and chose to keep it safe. Over time, that decision made all the difference. Even the smallest flaws, a light scratch, a fingerprint, a dull edge, can drop a coin's value significantly. But this one remained untouched. Its surfaces stayed smooth and reflective. The details stayed crisp. The lines of the building, the steps, the lettering, everything is clear, balanced, and bright. It's a showcase of just how cleanly and sharply a coin can be struck when everything goes right. What makes this story even more interesting is that most collectors weren't even paying much attention to nickels from the 1990s until fairly recently. As attention has shifted toward modern coinage, coins like this have started gaining more recognition. Demand is growing, but the supply of perfect examples hasn't changed, it's still incredibly limited. Some collectors spend years searching for just one coin like this to complete their registry set, a collection of coins graded at the highest levels. And when a coin becomes essential to that kind of competitive collection, its value can go far beyond what anyone would expect from a modern piece. Coins like this aren't about historical context or rare composition. They're about precision and preservation. And that's what makes them so appealing to advanced collectors, especially those who focus on modern coinage. There's something impressive about finding a perfect example in a sea of ordinary ones. And when a coin checks every box, clear full steps, brilliant luster, untouched fields, no flaws under magnification, it enters a different category entirely. It becomes a reference point, an ideal, something that only a handful of coins ever reach. And that's where value truly starts to rise. So what kind of price can a modern-looking nickel like this really command? Well, one verified example of the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel, preserved in pristine condition, full steps included, reached a value that surprised even seasoned collectors. That single 5-cent coin was valued at $57,000. Yes, for a coin that most people might have ignored or spent without thinking twice. It's a powerful reminder that value doesn't always come from age or metal content. Sometimes, it's about the small details, the strike, the shine, the survival of something perfect in a world where most are just average. And it shows why it's worth paying closer attention, even to the coins we think we already know. Now let's move on to a coin that's easy to miss, not because it's rare in appearance, but because it looks almost exactly like the coins we've seen and spent thousands of times before. It's the 2000 D. Jefferson nickel, and on the surface, there's nothing that screams valuable. No dramatic errors. No unusual design. Just a 5-cent piece minted at the start of a new millennium. But sometimes, the value of a coin isn't in what's visible at a glance, it's in what survives unnoticed, in near-perfect form, long after it leaves the mint. This particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint, which you can identify by the small D mint mark located just next to the date on the obverse. The design is familiar, a calm, left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front, and on the back, Monticello, his stately Virginia home. The layout hasn't changed in decades, so this coin blends right in with countless others. But that's part of the story, because out of over 1.5 billion nickels produced at Denver in the year 2000, only a tiny fraction were minted with remarkable precision, and even fewer were preserved that way. The year 2000 marked the end of a decade, not the beginning of a major coin redesign or a change in materials. There was nothing especially newsworthy about the coin at the time. People spent it, tossed it into change jars, or forgot about it entirely. It's not a coin people typically check. And yet, the 2000 D. Jefferson nickel has quietly become one of the most valuable modern nickels, not because of an error or historic moment, but because of the quality of just a few surviving pieces. For Jefferson nickels, especially modern ones, collectors focus heavily on strike quality. One of the key indicators of this is on the reverse, Monticello's front steps. These horizontal steps, found at the base of the building, are a giveaway. Most coins, even ones struck fresh from the mint, show only vague outlines or uneven impressions in this area. That's because dies wear out fast, especially in high-volume years, and the fine lines often get lost in the rush of mass production. But a coin with full steps, meaning all the lines are present, sharp, and completely separated from one another, stands apart immediately. And when that kind of detail is paired with an overall clean strike, untouched surfaces, and a strong original shine, it becomes something far more desirable to serious collectors. Now, think about the odds here. Out of over 1 billion coins, a very small percentage ever leave the mint with that level of precision. And of those, most will be spent, handled, or scratched within weeks. Only a few might be pulled straight from a roll, noticed early, and kept safe. Maybe in a drawer. Maybe in a mint set. Maybe by someone who didn't even know what they had. And that's what makes this coin so interesting. It represents a rare survival, not in terms of age, but in terms of condition. It's a snapshot of perfect timing, caught before circulation could do its damage, before time could dull its surface or blur its detail. Most people never expect to find real value in coins from recent decades. There's a belief that only older coins, the ones tied to history or made of silver, are worth serious money. But modern coinage tells a different story, especially when you look at grading and quality. Grading services today apply intense scrutiny to coins, especially those from high mintage years. With so many examples available, only the best, the top fraction of a percent, earn elite designations. For the 2000 D nickel, that means perfect surfaces, full steps, and strong eye appeal. No room for even minor flaws. And as more collectors build competitive sets focusing on modern issues, these high-end examples are in demand. Not because they're old, but because they're nearly perfect, and because so few from this era actually survive that way. They're becoming modern classics, and their values are beginning to reflect that shift. A flawless 2000 D nickel doesn't look flashy. It doesn't scream for attention. But when it shows full steps, sharp detail, bright luster, and absolutely no signs of handling, it enters a level of scarcity that's hard to match, especially among modern circulating coins. And when a coin is both unexpectedly rare and undeniably high in quality, its value climbs, quietly at first, then rapidly, as collectors compete to own the best. There's also a growing awareness among new collectors that the coins they grew up with, the ones from the late 90s and early 2000s, are now reaching that age where condition starts to matter. They've been in pockets and drawers for over 2 decades. The few that remain pristine stand out even more with each passing year. This shift is also being reflected in coin shows, grading registries, and online communities. More collectors are hunting for high-grade modern coins, building sets that require only the best examples from each year and mint. That demand drives up prices fast, especially when a coin checks every box. And that's exactly what happened with this one. All it took was one coin. One brilliant, untouched example of the 2000 D Jefferson nickel, with every detail intact, from the tiny lettering to the crisp, clean steps of Monticello. A coin that looked like it had been frozen in time, as though it had skipped the entire cycle of circulation. And when the right collector came across it, they saw its true worth. In the last spot on today's list, we have a coin that many people wouldn't expect to see here, mainly because it's not very old at all. In fact, most of us probably remember using this one not too long ago. It's the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel, and while it may seem like just another recent 5-cent piece, there's a reason it made it to this list. This coin is a reminder that even modern change still has the potential to hold significant value, if the right conditions come together. The P mint mark tells us this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the most active mints in the country. In 2015, this facility produced hundreds of millions of nickels, over 700 million, to be exact. With such a high production number, you'd assume that every one of those coins was just average. And for the most part, that's true. Most were used, worn down, and forgotten. But among them, a few stood out, not because of design, but because of preservation. The 2015 Jefferson nickel features the modern design, with Thomas Jefferson facing forward on the obverse, offering more facial detail than earlier versions. His expression is calm but direct. On the reverse, Monticello still holds its place, with slight improvements in clarity that reflect updated minting techniques. While this design is clean and balanced, it's not rare. What's rare is a perfect example of it. That's where collectors come in. Over time, they've learned to look beyond just the year or mint mark. They examine sharpness, surfaces, and the smallest details. For this nickel, the most important of those details is on the reverse, Monticello's steps. If you can see each step clearly, without blurring, without flattening, it's considered a full step strike. And that alone makes a big difference. Most coins from this mintage do not show full steps. In fact, even fresh from the mint, many had slight imperfections caused by worn dies or rushed production. Combine that with everyday circulation, and you end up with coins that are dull, scratched, or slightly off-center, none of which attract collectors. So what makes this coin valuable? It's not just about having full steps. It's about having those steps, plus brilliant luster, clean surfaces, no bag marks, and not a single blemish under close inspection. A coin like that is hard to find in any year, but even harder in recent ones, where coins aren't usually saved with care unless someone happens to notice their quality early on. Imagine someone opening a fresh roll of 2015 nickels shortly after release. They check each one carefully, and one stands out. It looks perfect, brighter than the rest, sharper than the rest, like it was struck just right. That coin gets tucked away, placed in a holder, maybe graded. And it sits there, untouched, while the others go on to be spent, scuffed, and forgotten. That kind of awareness is what makes this coin story possible. Because someone noticed what most people ignored. In recent years, modern coins in top condition have become a growing part of the collecting world. Competitive registry sets, where collectors try to build the finest known collection of a particular series, have created demand for these high-grade modern coins. And since these coins were made in massive numbers, only the absolute best are considered worthy of top rankings, which makes them surprisingly rare. It's not about age anymore. It's about perfection. And when a coin from a high mintage year stands out for its flawless state, its value doesn't just creep up, it can take a leap. Even without silver or historical backstory, it becomes sought after simply because it's that hard to find in such a high grade. So here we have it, a coin from 2015 that many would overlook. A coin that looks just like millions of others. But because of how well it was struck, and how well it was preserved, it became something far more impressive than anyone expected. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new today, don't forget to give it a like, share it with fellow collectors, and subscribe for more coin stories just like this. Your support helps us keep creating and sharing content with the collecting community. And if you've ever come across a unique coin or an interesting find in your own pocket change, drop a comment below, we'd love to hear your story. Every comment and share helps our community grow and keeps the conversation alive. We appreciate every one of you who watches and supports us. Thanks for being part of this journey, and we'll see you in the next one.